Hello, good evening. If you do have a mobile phone, if you'd like to put it on silent, please. Thank you. Neil Williams, herbalist, with Find the Facts About Fats. Most people's knowledge of fats or oils comes from the government, via the media and through doctors. The results are apparent, and coupled with the other stuff that masquerades as food, we, along with most Western nations, are experiencing a rapid health decline and a weight increase. Also spiking alarmingly are cancer and cardiovascular disease. Millions are on permanent medication. Neil tonight delivers a little bit of a broadside at the modern diet and provides some solutions, and then it's over to us. Please welcome Neil Williams.
Right. Thanks for that introduction, Rob, and thanks for turning out on this quite wet and windy night. Okay, so what I'm going to say tonight, it may or may not be controversial, because if you do keep abreast of what goes on in the mainstream news, they're actually catching up now. So we'll see whether what I'm going to say is quite radical or not to you, but we'll get cracking. And also, this is my first attempt at this presentation, so you're guinea pigs on this. And for those that remember Morecambe and Wise, when they had Andre Previn, and I think it was a Christmas show. So you've got the right slides tonight, but not necessarily in the right order. Okay, I'll start off with this. This is just a random picture I found by the courtesy of Google. This is just some people in I think it's America in the 1940s. So could somebody just tell me what is quite significant about these people? Yeah, they're all skinny. They're all slim. I mean, there's a few people there that are middle-aged, but they're all slim. And if you've ever been to America on your holidays or because of business, I think it's quite different now. So that's quite interesting. So, okay, so we're talking about fats, and obviously the scare word is saturated fats. And when we think of like saturated, we think in terms of something which is just like just dripping, just dripping with fat or whatever. But we're just going to have a look at go back to chemistry. If you ever studied chemistry, we'll see what actually saturated means. And saturated in this context, so there's two fat molecules. Saturated means is that all of the carbon atoms have hydrogen atoms attached to them. And unsaturated means that there's some missing, and you have this double bond between the carbon atoms. So maybe that's exploded just one myth about the word saturated fat, because we're supposed to be scared of saturated fat. So that's what's one thing. You might have heard of terminology like triglycerides, where this is what a triglyceride. Obviously, the hint is in the first part of the word, tri. So you've got three of these. And in animals, sources of fat, we get saturated fat. And obviously in most plants, we get unsaturated fats. There are a few exceptions. Anyone want to give me one or two exceptions? Coconut. So coconut is a saturated fat, which we've probably heard about in the news. And also palm oil as well. Though of course palm oil, there is certain controversy about palm oil, because what they do to get hold of palm oil, they cut down the rainforests and obviously affect animals like orangutans. So they do things like slash and burn, just so that we can benefit from palm oil. Okay, this is a phospholipid, and obviously you've got the fat here on this. So I can't think of the word now. So it's a hydrophilic head, on a phosphate group. That's the word I'm looking for. And when you attach these together, because one end is hydrophobic, so it doesn't like water, and the other end is attracted to water, put them together like this, and you get what's called a phospholipid bilayer. And then you get these phospholipid bilayers, which are basically the membrane to the cells in your body. So your cells have these, basically are surrounded by fat, and obviously this is important because of the cell integrity. So this is the membrane of a cell. So again, you know, why are we getting so scared about fats when obviously it's important that we need fat for our cells, and these play an important function of cell integrity. Now we've also heard of fish oils, omega-3s and omega-6s. So what does that mean? Well, from the tail end, if you're going 3, place where you've got this unsaturated bond, 3rd place along, that's omega-3. But if you go 6 along, you get your omega-6. So that is where that terminology comes from. Obviously, what are sources of omega-3s that we're told about? Certain nuts, yeah. Fish, so things like your fish oils and your cod liver oils. And your omega-6s, you get these from like vegetable oils. Now, so these are examples of what's called a isomer. So you've got a cis isomer, a cis fat molecule. Cis, the way that I remember it is because cis, it's like same, it's on the same side, so you've got cis. On this side, you've got trans, and obviously trans means across, like this Trans-Siberian Railway. So trans, you've got across, so you've got opposing atoms here. So cis, same, trans, opposite. And you might have heard about trans fats, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. I know this is what we're scared of getting cardiovascular disease or heart disease, is getting this clogging of our arteries. And what we're led to believe what this is? Cholesterol. So we believe that this is like cholesterol, which clogs up, or you might get a breakage and a bit floats off or whatever. So this is what we're told we should be scared of. And then going back to 1913, a scientist called Nikolai Anishkov, I don't remember how to pronounce that, he fed cholesterol to rabbits. And guess what? They developed atherosclerotic plaque. So they developed these plaques. So any surprise in there? And obviously this was the basis of the theory that cholesterol is a problem. And then there's this gentleman who was so famous that he was on the front page of Time magazine. Somebody by the name of Ansel Keys, who was a biochemist, and he did something called the 6-country study followed by the 7-country study, and he showed that there was this association with fat against mortality. So the more fat in the diet, there's the higher rates caused by heart disease. Okay, so far this is what we're told about, isn't it? Not in the mainstream. And another part of the equation was that in the early 1900s, the company called Procter & Gamble, which you might have heard of, they brought out onto the market this cooking oil, which is solid at room temperature, which is supposed to be like a replacement for butter. And as you can see, the tagline, Crisco, better than butter for cooking. Originally, this was used for making candles, but due to the electrification that went on in the early part of the last century, of course we didn't need candles, so they found a new market for it, which is using it for cooking. It's quite interesting, but obviously this is what happens with big corporations, you know. And then these are what we're supposed to have in our diet. The PUFA stands for polyunsaturated fatty acids. So if you remember the previous picture of the molecule, so polyunsaturated. So there's more than one parts of the molecule which are unsaturated. Okay, and we're told that this is good for us, and we should avoid the saturated fat. Okay, and then we're also told about cholesterol as well, where we have like the HDL, the LDL. The HDL is supposed to be the good cholesterol, and then the LDL is bad cholesterol. Okay, and then if we have high cholesterol, or if we're over a certain age, then obviously we're put on statins to try and lower the bad cholesterol. Okay. And that's it. We can all go home now, can't we? I mean, that's it. I was told less is more, so we could stop there. We can go home, have a cup of tea. But however, we can go down the rabbit hole, and we can look a bit, just scratch under the surface and see what really is going on. Okay. Going back to the experiment with the rabbits, with Anishkov, rabbits are herbivores. It's going to happen that they don't eat cholesterol. So how can this be conclusive to animals such as us that actually we do eat meat and fat? So some would say, well, that's a bogus experiment. That's misleading. That experiment. And also, going back to Ansel Keys, he did a bit of fraudulent science because he cherry-picked the data. Because once you put in because he put in the 7 countries here, and to show this, but he cherry-picked the data. He left out all of the other countries that actually don't show a correlation between having high fat in your diet or saturated fat and a higher death rate from heart disease. Okay, and also if you read down here, also he left out about the countries that actually use margarine, and we think that margarine is actually good for us as well, not butter. But Keys is still considered a hero of modern medicine. And again, you get certain peoples in the world, like the Maasai from I think they're from Kenya, who have a very high, it's almost 50% amount of fat in their diet, and then the Inuit or the Eskimos, the same. Yet they have very low deaths due to heart disease. So it's not, you see already, it's not fitting the picture or the paradigm. And of course, if you cherry pick the data, you can get the graph to do whatever you want. You know, and this is the problem with science, is that if you think you know where you want to go with the results, you can then obviously fudge the data to get those results. And again, this is another graph showing that there isn't correlation between saturated fat and heart disease. So in these countries, you have lower rates of heart disease associated with higher levels of saturated fat in the diet. Okay, and also we've got the side effects of statins. Is anybody here on statins? Okay. Okay, so you get you can get these side effects to be exact. So upper gastrointestinal disturbances, muscle pains, headache, rash, sleep disturbances, and so forth. and also memory loss. I know someone who's taking statins, and when he goes out the front door to find his car, he can't remember where he's parked the car. And another problem with statins is that statins obviously they inhibit the production of cholesterol, which is what we want them to do. But also with this metabolic pathway, they inhibit something called coenzyme Q10, which you might have heard of. And coenzyme Q10 is basically used as a source of energy in the body. Okay. It's actually quite important for the body to have coenzyme Q10. Now, this I was quite amazed that I found this this week. So, you know, whether it was coincidence or not, I don't know. But this is quite interesting. And this is actually quite a bombshell. If you read this, statins stimulate atherosclerosis, so that's the hardening and thickening of the arteries, and heart failure. So it talks about here about statins may be causative in coronary artery calcification and can function as mitochondrial toxins. Depletion of CoQ10 and therefore ATP generation, which is all to do with energy production. Statins inhibit the synthesis of vitamin K2, which I know some of you heard of K2 because that is important for getting the calcium to the bones. Because without adequate K2, and if you're taking a calcium supplement, you risk calcifying your arteries, which is not good. So you know, we're not told about actually statins could actually be causing heart disease. Also, another thing we're not told about when it comes to cholesterol is that cholesterol is the basis of making your sex hormones, testosterone, things like cortisol, estrogen and so forth. So why is cholesterol getting such bad press when it's the basis of our hormones? Okay, and also, I know some of you know about vitamin D. When you get vitamin D from when you go out in the sun, and of course, cholesterol is used in the production of vitamin D when it's under your skin. So back to this again. So this clogged artery. It's actually made up of these things. It's not just the cholesterol. So we've got white blood cells, smooth muscle cells, dead cells, triglycerides again, and calcium. So why are we pointing the finger at cholesterol? And there is this view. I'm going to use this analogy. Is what happens if you go home one day and you find out that your house is on fire and it's full of firemen. Yeah, I think a lady on the front row is it's got glassy eyes at that. So what if we blame the firemen for causing the fire, but they just happen to be there and they're actually doing something else? Okay, and could this be with the whole idea about cholesterol being there in our arteries?